Hey guys, Nate here, Director of Sales with New View Trust Company, and here are 10 considerations you should make before lending. Lending is one of the top investment strategies self-directed IRA investors use today. But before you lend or use your IRA like a bank and lend your hard-earned retirement dollars to somebody, here are 10 things that you should consider to help safeguard your IRA. Number one, don't loan on something you wouldn't be excited to own. That sounds pretty basic for most people, but what that means is, remember at the end of the day, worst case scenario, if you lend your money out of your IRA and you hold a promissory note, for instance, secured by real estate, if the borrower doesn't pay and that loan goes into default, your IRA will now own that property. Do you know what to do with that property? Most people know what to do with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. But if you do a loan to a real estate investor who's buying commercial property, ask yourself the question, will you be excited to own commercial property if the borrower goes into default? Number two, hire professionals, especially if you're new. Hire professionals to either help you evaluate your deals and especially when you structure your deals. When you invest in a promissory note or decide that you want to lend your New View account IRA money to a borrower, you have to find professionals that help you through the way. One professional might be a lender's attorney. Lender's attorneys are great to help make sure that your IRA as the lender is protected and the verbiage within that promissory note protect the IRA and not the borrower. Number three, when you do structure the terms of your note, remember, collect monthly interest so you know when the borrower is getting in trouble. Oftentimes I've seen investors structure promissory notes where the note principal balance and all of the interest that's charged isn't due until the maturity of the note. And the maturity of the note is when the note ends, when it's due. That could be 2 years down the road. If you know your borrower is in trouble prior to that 2-year period, but you're not holding them accountable to make any payments back to your IRA, it might be very difficult to call that loan a performing loan or a non-performing loan. So make sure that you have some sort of gauge within the terms of your note that allow you to do that. And one of the easiest ways to do that is structure it so you have monthly payments that are required from the borrower. Now, if the loan goes into default, number four, do not delay. Take action. What's take action mean? In most states, take action simply means if your borrower misses a payment, send a notice of default. You're not foreclosing on the borrower just for the fact that they missed the payment by a day or a couple days. There's typically a process one has to go through to lead up to foreclosure. And the first step for most people is just to send the notice of default. But you can't finish what you haven't started, especially when it comes to foreclosures. And when you have to start that process, it starts with sending the notice of default when your borrower misses a payment. Number five, when loaning to a borrower or a real estate investor that might have a heavy rehab, be very careful on how much your IRA fronts for the rehab. For example, if a borrower needs $70,000 to buy a property, $30,000 to fix it up, and you loan out of your IRA all $100,000 at the front, you're really relying on that borrower to make sure that they do the $30,000 in rehab. What happens if the borrower dies, gets in a car wreck? Something happens, life happens to your borrower where they don't finish the rehab. You foreclose on that property and now it's owned in your IRA, and guess what still has to be done? The rehab. And if you own that property, your IRA has to come out with more money to finish paying for that rehab. So how do you safeguard yourself? Incremental fundings. Give the borrower $5,000 or $10,000 for the first set of repairs. Have them prove to you that the repairs are done before you send more money for the second set of repairs. So number five, generally do not advance too much in funds for the rehab before inspecting that the rehab is being done appropriately.